So, good morning, everyone. My name's Shazia Khan, and the unit that we'll be doing today is Personal and Professional Development in Health and Social Care Sector. We'll be doing Learning Outcome 3 today, but before I go through Learning Outcome 3, I want to just give you an idea of what we did in the last Learning Outcome. So we looked at Learning Outcome 2, and within Learning Outcome 2, there was a quiz that you needed to do. It was like a careers quiz. And as you can see, the link is there. It's with NHS, Let's Find Your Health Career. And I think some of you have done it, and I think some of you have not done it. So I've put the link there for you to do it for the next session. Jessie, have you done, you said you've done yours, yeah?
Yeah.
What did you come out as your career at the end of it?
I'll get up the screenshots. I got quite a lot.
Did you? Oh, that's excellent.
I got mental health nurse, high intensity therapy.
Oh, wow.
Forensic psychologist, occupational therapist, clinical psychologist, health visitor, counsellor, paediatrics, school nurse, learning disability nurse, and occupational medicine.
So you got a good variety.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was excellent. You can't do all them together, Jessie, though.
No, I have to pick one.
You have to pick one, yeah. Did anyone else manage to do it? Although I know you had an issue, so you can do it for next week. Sorry, or for tomorrow. You could do it for tomorrow because we've got a session tomorrow. Did Olumorati do it? Did you do it? Did anyone else manage to do it? So if you try to get it done for tomorrow, it gives you a bit of an idea of what different careers are, because that's part of your assignment structure as well. So just make sure you try and do it, okay? So we'll stop sharing that now and we'll just go into what so Learning Outcome 3 is the one we're going to do, but I'll give you a bit of an idea of what we did in the last Learning Outcome, which was Learning Outcome 2. Does anyone remember what we did in the last Learning Outcome?
We did regulation and laws around health and social care.
Yes, regulations and law. And why were they so important?
To keep people safe and
Keep
because
people
they
safe,
are the
yeah.
law.
Yeah, and we looked at the professional bodies. We looked at the different standards and codes of practice and CPD, why that, why we need CPD, why it's important. What is CPD? Just a refresher for you. Do you remember what CPD is?
Continue personal development.
Excellent. And why do we need that?
No, because of our intention to experience personal and professional development, we must engage in continued personal development because it's going to make us to have a reflective structure and approach, which will improve us in our working places.
So it's a way of getting your skills, isn't it? So if there's an area where you think you're quite weak or anything, you know, your CPD would help you. CPD, you know, could be anything that we did in regards to, you know, things like manual handling, safeguarding is an area of CPD, you know, the fact that, you know, we need to follow the codes of practice, especially in health and social care setting. You know, we need to be following legislation, we need to be following regulation, we need to be looking at best practices. You know, the fact that, you know, keeping up to date as well. When you keep up to date, you know the changes. If you're not keeping up to date, what happens? What do you think happens?
If we don't keep up to date, it means you'll be operating by not saving some people's life, because by working up to date is you are working with the safety also.
Yes, and you are keeping up to date with what's fresh, what's new, and any sort of new skills that you need to be able to improve. So, you know, especially in the healthcare setting, you know, do you remember any examples of CPD that we did? Anyone? Any examples?
like we discussed the CPDs, you can go for a conferences, you can go for
Absolutely.
seminars,
Yeah.
improving on the new skills,
Yes.
learning non-information about your field. Maybe, for example, you are a support worker, you can decide to go and learn new approach in mental health work. And
Yes.
here are some of these we discuss.
Yeah, it could be shadowing, coaching, any sort of webinars, mandatory training. You know, these are kind of CPDs that is needed in the healthcare profession, you know, because you're there to enhance the quality of any sort of care that you're providing, any sort of for your patients or any clients. You know, you are meeting the regulatory bodies requirements, you know, so you need to make sure you are undertaking CPD. And it's good for everyone. It's new skills, you know, learning new any sort of, you know, development skills, being up to date, being fresh. And it also, you know, it gives you a chance to identify where you need CPD as well. And, you know, you need to make sure, especially in the healthcare profession, going back to that, that is there to provide a quality life for anyone. It could be, like we said, shadowing. It could be, you know, going to seminars, reading. Reading's really important. So that was learning outcome 2 in regards to what we needed to do when it came to the legislation, the codes of practice in regards to learning outcome 2. Now we're going to go on to learning outcome 3, which is looking at understanding how reflective practice supports personal and professional development. So the indicative content for learning outcome 3 is to understand how reflective practice supports personal and professional development. So we look at, again, a definition of what reflective practice is, how it supports, how it maintains service users, colleagues, models of practice. So we look at Kolb's model, Gibbs' reflective model, and how to identify our own attitudes and beliefs, self-awareness, and how to keep a reflective diary. So it's really important. And part of, you know, professional development is self-awareness. Why do you think self-awareness is really important? Why do you think it's important to be aware, be self-aware of what you're doing or the processes or anything like that?
So you can reflect and improve.
So, yeah, you can reflect and improve. Does every person want to reflect and, you know, improve?
Not necessarily.
No, not necessarily. No, you've got to bear in mind that, you know, everyone is different. Not everyone wants to improve. Not everyone wants to do CPD. You know, I'll give you an example. Someone who's never used a computer, quite old, like me, who's never used a computer, would they want to adapt to new technology then? Any sort of new computer software that's come in, would they be quite complacent to, you know, say that I'm going to move to changing?
Possibly not.
Yeah, because they don't, you know, a lot of the older generation in my workplace, they don't like computers. They don't like the use of laptops. They don't like the use of Microsoft Teams. They don't like the use of Zoom. And that is because they don't like change. But, you know, change is really important because, you know, you will change and you will grow. So, you know, as, you know, when we look at, again, reflective practice, going back to it, it's continuous learning, isn't it, really, where someone is there to improve their personal development and professional improvement. So, you know, reflective practice, it's not just about learning, it's reflecting on your personal growth and how you intend to do that, you know, and, you know, for students and for educators, it's one of the key successful learning tools. And when you engage in reflective practice, students have the opportunity, and yourself, you know, you have the opportunity to reflect on your own strengths and weaknesses, don't you? You analyze and you plan for the future. Reflecting, some people don't like to reflect and think, you know, I can do, I don't need to do anything better, because they'll have this thing in their head that, you know, I'm okay as I am. why do you think reflection is so important in any profession, not just the health and social care profession? Olu, why do you think it's so important to reflect? Do we become better as a person? Olu, can you hear me now? If you can hear me. Anyone else? Zoe, why do you think reflection is important? Jessie? Any good?
So you can improve.
So you can improve, but do you learn through reflection?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the more courses you attend, the more CPD, you also learn through it, and you also, it's also there for personal and professional development. So we're looking at 3.1, explain what is meant by reflective practice. And again, it's where you reflect on your mindset. So it enables you to learn from your actions. It enables you to make informed decisions, about what you want to do and engage in teams. It also enables you to, improve. If you think about the health and social care profession, reflection is so that you're able to reflect on how you're doing something, whether it's there to improve any sort of social processes. It creates better teams as well, so you as an individual are learning through experience and self-reflection. So, where you look at your professional development. When we talk about the health and care, social care profession, why do you think is, oh, sorry, someone's put something in the chat. Well, yeah. Thank you, Zoe, to see where you're going wrong. Yeah. It's really important in the health and social care profession that you reflect. Why do you think it's so important? Do you think there's changes all the time? Solu? Yeah. Marati, can you hear me? Why do you think it's so important to reflect in the health and social care profession?
I think it's important for us to reflect because it helps us know the key areas we need to do the right things, like a KPI.
Yeah.
No index.
Do you think if you reflect, do you think it improves how you work as an individual?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. It helps you improve, but it also helps you to identify your strengths and weaknesses, doesn't it? If you're able to reflect on yourself, and it's really good. And I think, people think, they don't like to hear any sort of constructive criticism. But I think it's good to reflect, because with reflection, you're able to identify where there's a need for CPD, where there's a need for you to reflect on and, look at where there's a need for you to get training. So it's really, really important within the health and social care profession. So the next one is looking at 3.2, explaining his theoretical models of reflective practice. So, there's a need to have theoretical models in place. And, the two that we concentrate on is the models are Kolb's learning cycle, okay? And what that reflected on in regards to the elements of the 4 components of that learning cycle, which are concrete, reflective, abstract, conceptualization, and active, which we'll go through in a little while. And the whole point of Kolb's strategy was He defined learning as the process whereby knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. What do you think he meant by that? The knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. What do you think he meant by that? So he identified the learning experience consisting of 4 elements. Okay, so like we said, concrete experience, reflective observation of the new experience, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation. And they were what Kolb identified as the elements of it. And the first one in regards to it, so was that he looked at the importance of how humans actually learn and how they involve a large spectrum of cognitive processes, and that's the brain, you know, how that actually elements the elements of the brain and how they work. So he looked at the 4 main elements of that within that learning cycle, and he defined the learning cycle as we mentioned, the 4 elements. So the first one it being the element of concrete. Just 1 minute. So the first one is concrete experience. So having the actual experience. So it's really important. Why do you think it's important to have the actual experience? Awesome. You learn things better when you go through the process. True, Zoe? Yeah, you're right. Why do you think it's concrete experience? Why do you think it's important to have the actual experience of it within Kolb's learning cycle? When you physically have an experience of something, is that important? Sorry, was someone going to say something? Olusola, why do you think that's so important? When you physically have experience of a situation? Okay. Let's see. Zoe? Yes. So when we look at concrete experience, that's when you consciously and physically experience the situation, which makes you realize that you need to reflect systematically in order to learn something new or improve on your existing skills and practice. At this stage, you will make a note of your specific situation and just describe what you see, how you feel, and what you think. So why do you think, Jessie, why do you think it's so important to have a physical experience in a situation? Why do you think that helps you reflect more?
To experience something in real life
Yes.
is different to listening to someone explaining it, because
Excellent.
you've got to react yourself.
Yes.
And you can see what can go wrong.
Yes.
More
And you
easily.
also learn to reflect in an order that, you know, you're in that situation, aren't you, physically? So you're able to reflect on that and, you know, identify what you need to do or how you need to improve. The next one is reflective observation, and that's reflecting on the experience. So having written down the description of the experience, it's now time to reflect more deeply on it, and that's reflective observation on what has happened in this situation. The questions you need to ask yourself: what worked, what failed, why did the situation arise, and why did others and I behave the way we did? So that's reflective observation. The next one is abstract conceptualization, so learning from the experience. The guiding question at this stage leads on from the questions in reflective observation stage. What could I have done better or differently? Why is it good to identify things like what could I have done better or differently? How can I improve? Why do you think it's so good to identify them concepts? Why is it good to identify?
So you can
Yeah.
learn.
You can learn, you can improve, you can find different ways of dealing with that situation and think of different strategies at that time. Also, at this stage, you can consult colleagues and literature in order to get a better understanding and further ideas. And the final one is active experimentation, and that's trying out what you need to have learned. This stage is now practicing the newly acquire theoretical knowledge. So you've learned the knowledge through abstract, and then this is applying it. You take your own reflections and thoughts about improvements as well as the theories back into practice and try out new stages. Some of them will work, others work. So this is automatically the basis for the new cycle, as the experiences with the active experimental stage become the new concrete experience. So that's what you get in real life. Okay, so now we're going to just go on to effective learning styles, okay? So why is it important to look at effective learning styles? So you have the experience one in the diagram. First, having a concrete experience, reflection, conceptualization, and test. And we've just been through the cycle, Kolb cycle, and how that identifies the elements of it. And, you know, effective learning only occurs when a learner progresses through each stage of the 4-cycle passing through a concrete experience, followed by the observation, reflection of this experience, resulting with the formation of the abstract concept, and then generalization. So you have to go through the learning experience, and teachers need to use that experimental learning cycle to teach students within various different courses, and it encourages students to become more problem solving and use the cycle to improve their certain concepts and certain ideas. Is everyone okay?
Yeah.
Everyone okay with that? Yeah. So we've got Kolb's styles, sets out 4 distinctive styles, which are based on a 4-stage learning cycle, which we looked at. And then within them, you've got things like diverging, which is feeling and watching, assimilating, thinking and watching, converging, think and do, and accommodating, which is doing and feeling. So we'll just go through each one of them so you've got a little bit of an idea of what each one means. So the first one of the learning styles is diverging, which is feeling and watching. These people see things from different perspectives. They prefer watching to doing and are able to use their imaginations to be creative in their overall learning styles. This style is so called due to these individuals learning best in instances where they are required to gather information or generate new ideas. And then we've got the next one, assimilating, watching and thinking. What do you think they do, watching and thinking? What do you think that kind of learning style involves? Watching and thinking. What do you think these kind of people do? What do you think a person that's watching and thinking does? That's visual learning, yes. So these people are able to explore and analyze models logically and are more interested in concepts and tasks than in relationships or working in groups. Examples of preferred learning situations for these type of learners include lectures, readings, and individual learning, and that gives them time to analyze and think rather than discuss. Then we've got converging ones, which are doing and thinking. And these people are good problem solvers and are seen as being practical in their analysis of ideas and tasks. And they tend to converge on the answers they want and prefer learning activities like technical tasks that involve finding solutions rather than interpersonal or group learning. Then we've got the final one, which is accommodating. And they come into active experimental, which is doing and feeling. So these people tend to be more practical in their outlook on learning and they like to see problems from a point of view. They may rely on gut feeling and like found new challenges that involve taking an experimental approach. So learning style descriptors are important in regards to knowing and enables the learner to identify what they want to do, okay, and their preferred methods, because it's really important to identify what the learner does and how they are better at learning. And we've gone through the brief descriptors, diverging, which is feeling and watching, assimilating, watching and thinking. And then we've gone through converging, which is doing and thinking, and accommodating and doing in regards to that. So you've got Honey and Mumford, and he identified learning styles and his model offers a fascinating insight into how we process and retain information and how we can leverage this knowledge to improve our learning experience and performance at work. The model was developed by Peter Honey and Alan Munford, and it identified 4 distinct learning styles. So you have the activist, you have the reflectors, theorist, and pragmatist. Each style represents a different approach to learning with its own strengths and weaknesses. And you know, the way you tailor your learning experience, it identifies which learning style and which preference you have. So you may be an activist, you may be, I'll just mute that. You may be an activist, you may be a theorist, you may be a pragmatimist, or you may be a reflector. And Honey and Munford identified 2 drivers of learning. Okay, so they identified, consider 2 drivers. So doing again versus observing. So how much we like to learn from giving it a go versus learning outside of the task, and thinking versus feeling. So how much we drive towards logical, structured solutions versus embracing complexity and ambiguity. So that's what he identified. So he identified, like we said, the 4 elements: activist, reflector, and pragmatist and theorist. And we're going to go through each one, so you've got a little bit of an idea what each one does. There's none of the styles are actually better than any of the others. They have advantages and disadvantages of all of them, okay? So the first one is the activist. So activists thrive on new experiences and challenges. Does anyone think they're an activist here in the group? They thrive on new challenges and experience. Jessie, do you think you're an activist?
Possibly.
No. Olusolu, do you think you're an activist? Oluwakimi or Olumorati, do you think you're an activist? You thrive on new experiences and challenges. Zoe, what do you think? So activists thrive on new experiences and challenges. Like the pragmatists, they are hands-on learners, but like reflectors, they're less concerned and logical rigor and embrace nuance and complexity. They ain't deterred by a lack of formal guidance or detailed instructions, so they like to take instructions, although neither are they quick to consult them when they exist. Activists also are an advantage when it comes to highly practice-based learning, where there's no shortcut other than getting in the reps. They're enthusiastic about new ideas, but need encouragement to pause, reflect, and join the dots from time to time. So, you know, activists are you know, people that are hands-on, that thrive for new challenges and are there to, you know, make sure that they practice-based learning. They don't take any shortcuts. Then we've got the next one, which is the theorist. And these logical learners seek to understand the underlying principles and theories behind new ideas. They enjoy models, concepts, and systems thinking. Theorists excel at analyzing complex information, spotting patterns, and creating coherent explanations. They feel ready to go once they've had a aha moment and can boil a situation down to its core tenets. They may struggle with ambiguity or situations that require more initiative approach. They don't like to be thrown in the deep end and are suspicious of claims that something will make sense once you've gotten started. Then the next one we've got is the pragmatist ones. These practical learners actually focus on applying new knowledge to real life situations. Like theorists, they take a logical approach, but they are much more keen to put things into practice. Pragmatists are attracted to problem-solving tasks, mastering skills methodologically, and seeking out structure, knowledge that has a clear, tangible benefit. They may find it challenging to engage in abstract concepts that don't have an immediate application, or processes or afforders that don't have a right of way of doing things. And then the final we've got one is the reflector, which is they excel in observing and reflecting on experience, their own and others. Like theorists, they prefer to start learning in research mode, but they're more comfortable with messy qualitative data, stories, and other disparate sources of information, drawing out tacit connections. They are less in a rush to work out the perfect answer than theorists. Sometimes, to a fault, they can be hesitant to draw firm conclusions. Reflectors actually thrive in situations that they can take their time to think things through and work independently or in small groups. They may find it uncomfortable to make a quick decision or work under pressure. Now, any of you, what do you think you are? Do you think you're a reflector, a theorist, pragmatics, or activist? What do you think you are? Jessie, what do you think you are?
I think possibly activist, possibly reflector.
What, Olu Marathi, what do you think you are?
I think I'm pragmatic and a
Oh,
reflective.
okay. So you like new knowledge you like a logical approach?
Yes.
Yes. What about Olusalu? What do you think you are? Olusalu? No? Wakimi? No? Zoe, what do you think you are? It's really, really interesting to reflect on these, because not every learning style works for every individual. It depends on the problem. Understanding the different learning styles will help you as a, individual in identifying the certain concepts. Everyone is different. Everyone learns differently. So, as an activist, if you're a manager and you're working with an activist, you can provide opportunities for them, hands-on learning, and allow them to take on new challenges. If we are managing a reflector, you can offer them time for independent research and analysis before making important decisions. And Zoe, you think you're a very creative and visual person. Yeah. That would be, what did we say, creative and visual? It would be more a theorist, wasn't it? New ideas, creative. Yeah. And then, you've got like, you can support, the weaker people in regards to identifying the learning styles that they reflect on. There are advantages and disadvantages of all this as well. It's not all clear cut. you know, there is advantages and disadvantages in regards to this. And the advantages and disadvantages in regards to the Honey and Mumford learning styles is that sometimes when we look at advantages, it's some of the advantages are Honey and Mumford's learning styles allow individuals to understand their unique learning preferences. You know, some of these are the advantages. Improved communication, so it understands one's learning style can lead to improved communication. And another advantage is enhanced self-awareness. It empowers you as individuals to identify areas where you need improvement. With a clear understanding of their preferred learning styles, another advantage, individuals can optimize their learning strategies. And also another advantage is variety in training. So trainers and educators can acknowledge the diversity of learning skills. When you look at some of the disadvantages of Honey and Mumford's learning styles, is one key element is that the model tends to oversimplify complex learning processes, and it could ignore things like multifaceted nature of learning. The model may promote the idea that individuals are limited by learning preferences, and it actually sometimes that hinders people's development. There's also a risk of bias as individuals may favor their preferred learning style. The model may lack flexibility as well, assessing a learner's ability to adapt to different teaching methods. And the focus on another disadvantage is the focus on categorizing learners might detract from each learner's unique blend of styles. And it's really, really important in recognizing and adapting to different learning styles to enhance any elements of communication, teaching and learning experience. When you understand your learning styles, you have a better structure of the learning environment around you, and it also gives you elements of where you need to have more training. So this was the homework for the next session is to take a quiz on Honey and Mumford learning style just on there. The link is there. Just take a screenshot of the quiz as well, so we could have a look at that in regards to it, if you've done this quiz as well in your own time. Analyze the impact of own attitudes, values and beliefs on practice of health, practice of care. Why do you think that's so important in regards to it? Why do you think your attitudes and beliefs are so important in regards to, you know, practice of care? Why do you think attitudes, value and beliefs are so important? What do they affect? Do they affect your day-to-day life? Because if you go into working with someone and you disagree with a certain element of how they work, or some, you know, they have a different attitude or a different belief, does that affect your day-to-day life and affect how you think? Oli Murati, do you think it affects your day-to-day life, your values, your beliefs, your attitudes?
Yeah, in a way.
How do you think it would affect it? Give me an example of how something may affect it in your profession in health and social care.
Sometimes bringing in into perspective religion.
Yes,
Sometimes
yes.
my religion or my belief can tend
Yes,
to
excellent,
override
excellent. Yeah,
how I see things.
yes. And that is, you know, that is a crucial part in the health and social care profession, isn't it? Religion plays a big part. Your beliefs, your religion, you know, your attitude, you know. And I'll give you an example, you know, in my religion, which is Islam, we do not prohibit if someone is extremely ill and in ICU, we do not allow the machines to be switched off, because you know, in Islam, that is one of the things we respect. So if someone is really, we want them to die peacefully themselves rather than switching the machines off. So that's one of our beliefs and our attitudes. Why do you think we should take into account all the backgrounds, the beliefs of individuals? Why do you think it's so important?
Because it's so important to the individuals.
Yeah.
And it's
also,
a lifestyle, so
yes,
it's what they
yeah.
consent to, isn't it?
Because different people have different beliefs, don't they? They have different attitudes. And, you know, we as an individual must respect that, mustn't we? We must respect people's attitudes and beliefs. You know, they all have been brought up a different way. I have been brought up a different way to Jessie, Olu, Zoe, whoever. Been brought up differently. So my beliefs and attitudes will impact on what I think. You know, so it does, your upbringing does have an impact on it. You know, you as an individual need to make sure that you, you know, understand other people's beliefs. You know, you are there to, you know, make sure that you are not discriminating as well. That's a big thing. You know, some people do discriminate against beliefs and attitudes, but you need to make sure, especially within the healthcare profession, you know, you need to make sure that you are not discriminating against anyone's beliefs or anything. So just a question, think about two health and social care settings, such as residential setting or a daycare centre for individuals with learning disabilities. In what ways might the individuals attending each setting be different from one another? What could it be? It could be their needs, couldn't it? If they're disabled, what could it be? Could it be their needs, their wishes, preferences? You know, why do you think, you know, if you're working in a healthcare profession and you are working in an elderly care home, you know, some elderly patients might not want to be called by their first name, or they may want you to call them Mr. Smith or Mrs. Howarth. And that's from their belief and respect, isn't it? So you need to make sure that you are able to, you know, be there for that person and respect their wishes and preferences. Why is it important that workers' own attitude and behavior is positive towards the belief values? Why do you think? Why does anyone, Olu, Jessie, why, Olu Solu, why, Zoe, why do you think it's so important that your attitude and behavior is positive towards other people's beliefs?
So they feel comfortable,
Yeah,
and
if
safe with their
yeah,
own beliefs around you.
yes. So they feel comfortable, they feel safe, and you're able to communicate and interact with them. If someone thinks that you disrespect their belief, are they going to be comfortable with you?
No.
What will they feel, that you are discriminating against their values, attitudes, things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I've had experiences where I've dealt with people and it's been a struggle because their value and beliefs didn't meet my value and beliefs. So, you know, there was a discussion, but at the end of the discussion, there was no like conclusion. Do you understand? So we didn't come to an arrangement or anything. It's because they were so adamant that this is what their belief and values are. And is it a struggle sometimes to deal with people like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a struggle sometimes, really, to deal with people like that. So personal attitudes and belief, working and getting to know a diverse range of individuals, accessing service, respecting others' development, you know, their needs, their preferences, you know, understanding them, you know, and making sure that you're open-minded to new experiences and learning things. I love learning new things, and I think it's a huge part of culture as well, because we don't know everything about certain cultures. You know, things like, you know, maybe in certain parts of India, you know, I like knowledge. Certain parts of India, I can't get my head around it. Child brides, you know, at very young age, you know, but it's in that country and that part of the country, it's acceptable. So how would I mean, you may not accept it, I may not accept it, but it's acceptable. So how do you get your head around that? How do you think you'd get your head around that? Because they're never going to agree. If you don't accept it, because it's their belief and value, are they going to take on board what you think?
No, you have to be
No.
open-minded and
You have to.
non-judgmental.
Sometimes though, Jessie, it's very, very hard in
Mm.
certain situations to be open-minded.
Yeah, if you've got a concern about safety of a child, you should
Yes.
tell someone.
Yeah. Then that's a different thing. But it's very difficult. People have their own cultures and you should respect that. So think about the influences of your development from the past and present, who and what have been and who and what they are. This might include things like families, carers, colleagues, school friends, you know, how they've interacted, how their different views and their idols. You know, I don't sometimes agree with my sister's views, you know, but you've got to respect their views. And it could be that, you know, an elderly person may have a different view to you, most likely will, but you know, you need to respect that. How would you describe yourself in terms of beliefs, values, and preferences? Jessie, how would you describe yourself?
What I believe.
How would you describe yourself in terms of your beliefs, values, and preferences?
I think I describe myself as open-minded.
Good. Do you think a lot of your beliefs and values have been influenced by your family?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. As you're growing up, yes, it
Yeah.
does. A lot of it is. What about you, Olumarati? What do you think? Do you think a lot of your values have been instilled through your families?
Yes,
Yeah.
family, my community, the environment
Yes.
I grew up in,
Yes.
they've had a factor in my belief.
Yes, that plays a big part, doesn't it? Your
Yes, it does.
community of yes. And you know, when you talk about certain concepts, people may not understand that, but that's your value, your belief. You've been instilled into it. You know, we have the belief that we have to say thank you, don't we? That's a belief and what's been instilled into us, a value that we have to say thank you when someone does something for us, or we say sorry. You know, that is something that's been instilled into us. Olusolu, anything from you, Zoe? Oluwakimi? Okay, how would you see others? Okay, so how would you like to see others? So would you like to see others the same as you, or would you like to see others who have good values and good beliefs? Because is everyone the same?
No.
No, not everyone is the same, so you need to respect that. No.
Yes, we need to respect boundaries.
Yes. And you know, when you take that on board, it's difficult sometimes to accept certain things. I mean, I'll give you an example. When I was teaching once, because I am part of I work within the community as well. So I work with people that have suffered domestic violence or female genital mutilation, FGM. And I was teaching that as part of human rights and family law in my class. So this was in the community. I do that. I work as a chair for an organization, and then I teach law. So when I teach law and other elements of it, we do an element of human rights. So we talk about FGM. And I had a woman there from Nigeria, a lovely woman, and she was one of my students, and she was 80 years old. So that is quite an old student, but she was really nice. And she was very adamant that FGM is not a form of abuse. And I understood that, but as I was teaching it in this country, it's a form of abuse. But as I was teaching it, her beliefs. She was getting quite angry and stuff. And the reason behind it is because that's her belief and her value, that what FGM is, it was performed on her. She'd done it because as a child, it was performed on her. But I wasn't biased because then I had to speak to her after the session and say, I understand where you're going through. We're teaching it in regards to UK law. So, you know, it was quite a difficult situation, that. But we managed to get through it, and you know, but her belief, and I would never disrespect that. That was her belief and her value and her culture, what she was, you know, what her cultural norms were. That was believed to be normal. In that situation, if I disrespected that and said to her it's wrong, what do you think would have happened?
She would have felt like she was getting shut down and not heard.
Yeah. Olumaratu, what do you think if I didn't sit her down and we left the class like that? Do you think she would have felt like I'm not respecting her values and beliefs?
Definitely, she would have felt she was being judged.
Yes. And do you know, she was such a nice student. We all loved her because she was 80 years old. She was so nice. And I sat down with her, went through the elements of it. And, you know, that in this country, it's regarded as a form of abuse. Maybe in other countries like Nigeria and Egypt and things like that, it's not. It's regarded as a cultural thing, a tradition, an expectation. So, you know, then she understood. But otherwise, if I didn't sit down with her, I would have it would have, you know, I would have felt like that I'd offended her. Another question, so we've just talked about this a little bit. What cultural customs, traditions, expectations have you handed down to you? You know, the fact that you've got religious beliefs, you know, some people from, I think it's Jehovah's Witness, that don't like, you know, within the healthcare profession, don't like blood tests. They don't like having operations and things. It's very, very difficult, you know, and also religious things like, you know, if they eat meat or, you know, what the family does, any sort of religious ceremonies, you need to take into account all sorts of cultures and you need to respect that. Is everyone okay so far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So personal attitudes and behavior, we've gone through that. So when you're a social care worker, you might not agree with other people's attitudes and their preferences, but you are respecting and promoting them. So because people have the right to freedom of religion, freedom of thought, you know, freedom of conscience, they have the right to their personal life to be protected, you know, and respected. There's instances where people have been abused maybe because they've wore a religious dress, you know, and if their beliefs are that they don't want any sort of blood test or anything like that, you know, then that's one of their beliefs. So you have to respect that. Think about the practice and how you can improve it. So monitor improvements in your practice by checking individuals and respecting their values. Like we said, respect cultures, respect values, and, you know, have this attitude where you just have respect for others as well. Changes, increasing, making sure you're attending CPD programs to make sure you are aware of different cultures, what their expectations are, and how you need to understand different individuals' needs. Personal values and attitudes, as we said, the experience is part of someone's life. Their values, attitudes, your upbringing, how you've been brought up, your experiences, what your relationships are, how you've been brought up is different to every other person. I may have been brought up differently to you lot, which I may have anyway. You know, that's how things work. But, you know, you need to make sure that you identify people, how you understand them, take your time to understand them, you know, learn about culture. I love learning about culture, and I think it's really interesting. You may not agree with it, but that's part of everyone's culture. So what does beliefs mean? So belief is something that you believe as an individual or accept as true. So you feel that, you know, you might believe something based on a fact or an opinion or an assumption, when you believe something, you might not have immediate personal knowledge, but you are satisfied that something is in the way it is. So your belief system is not necessarily correct or accurately. It's interesting, not only you're driven by your beliefs, you will unconsciously look for evidence or other experiences. So your belief it starts from a very early age, and beliefs are based on your environment, what you're told, what you have heard, and you come to conclusions with that. So, it's really, it could be a help and a hindrance, but belief is what you believe. The next element of it is on the same slide is your attitude. Your attitude are your approaches, where a person's views and evaluate something or someone predisposition of or tendency to respond positively or negatively to a certain idea, object, or situation. It's your upbringing, your experiences through learning attitudes. And then we have your personal values, and they are a set of guiding principles and beliefs that help you differentiate from the good and bad. These are concepts like, integrity versus dishonesty, or hard work versus cutting corners. Personal values influences your behavior, your relationships, and everyday life. So you need to make sure that, you have a set of values that you abide by, and that you think that would, be helpful for you. Both personal values and core beliefs guide your decisions and behavior, but you choose your personal values, and they're typically positive while you develop core values during childhood, and they can be harmful or truthful. So, your personal values are important. Why do you think they're so important in regards to your working life or your professional life? Your personal values. Why do you think your personal, and how do they differ? How do personal values differ from professional values? Jessie, how do you think your personal values differ from your professional values?
Personal values are for when you're at home and when you're outside of the workplace. Professional values are how you uphold yourself at work.
Yes. So, personal values, do they play an important part in your relationships out in your personal surrounding?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry, what's that, Jessie? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, so it's how to you articulate your values within a certain boundary. So there are boundaries in place, so it helps you self-respect and have healthier relationships and develop healthier bonds. So it's really important to be aware of your own personal and professional boundaries. Personal and professional values. So we look at reflecting on your own. Why is it so important to reflect on your own? So if you look in a mirror, like the example is, it's a way of assessing yourself and the ways of reflecting on something that you think it needs improvement, maybe. Why do you think reflecting on your own learning? Why do you think 3.4, reflecting on your own learning, is so important? Why do you reflect? Olu, why do you reflect on, do you reflect on your work, or on your personal life, or do you reflect on, things that are happening in your life?
Yes, I do, because it helps me to know areas I need to adjust, areas I need to work on.
Yeah. Do you think it's good to self-reflect?
Oh, yes, it's very important because it also helps you to detox, mentally know what to put aside, know what to focus on.
Yeah.
So as not to be overwhelmed with so many things all at once.
Yes, it's very, very important, self awareness, to understand who you are, you as a person. you are and how you differ from other people. It could be things like understanding your values, your beliefs. Self-awareness requires thoughtful self-reflection. It's hard work that that can make you confront your behaviors, your decisions, or your actions. But it's important to self-improve. It could be connecting your personal values, which help you make better decisions. It could be investing in your personal development, which strengthens positive relationships as well. It could make you more confident and have control of your emotions. And why it is so important, as we mentioned, it is there reflecting on developing your skills. Okay, it enables any sort of self-development. It builds certain self-concepts. So, it identifies, greater sense of control. It also improves your communication. So, it's really important in regards to decision making. It could be unhealthy, so there are negative and positive parts of it. Self-reflection is a healthy practice and is important for any sort of well-being. However, it turns harmful if you self-judgment, constantly judging yourself is, and you're lacking self-talk, your negative feelings, your self-criticism sometimes can be a negative element of it. So the reflection questions to ask, you have strengths. So what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my skills that I have? What are my problems? Any sort of achievement that I've made? Any happiness? Any sort of solutions? You reflecting on that will define any sort of elements of that. 3M1, assess how reflective practice supports professional development. So reflective practice in support of professional development is the process by which you analyze your CPD activities to identify any sort of links between your activities and their impact on your personal or professional life. Undertaking any sort of CPD is really important. It enables you to identify your knowledge gaps and helps you modify your actions and behavior so you can meet objectives more easily. And reflecting is an important part of CPD as the knowledge skills need to practice change to your career. And you need to identify what your learning needs are, why you need to be reflecting and why you need to evaluate. So some people have a developmental action plan in place which identifies any sort of objectives and their skills and knowledge they need in regards to doing a CPD plan, and identifying, and elements that, you could get more CPD on any activities. So, people put development plans in place. The role of CPD in reflection in outcome-based CPD. So it promotes the development of self-awareness and critical thinking. So, CPD in regards to reflective practice is making sure that you develop your abilities throughout your career. You have commitment to lifelong learning. It's really important. And it's really important that it means that you're demonstrating any sort of understanding through any sort of training courses, any sort of knowledge of reading, any sort of webinars. Professional bodies require CPD. Why do you think it's important that your CPD is up to date? And then why do you think there's a need to have it for professional body purposes? Jessie, why do you think there's a need to have CPD in place for professional body purposes?
So that you're not out of date.
Yes, yeah. And that you are following the requirements of the, code of practice. You've done your training on example, maybe safeguarding. You've done your training on manual handling because it's part of the requirements. So you need to make sure you're on top of that. Analyze the benefits of reflective practice. So what are the benefits of reflective practice and why there's a need to have reflective practice? It's critical, like we said, it's a critical part of your professional and personal development. And, it broadens any sort of perspectives. It enhances things like your self-awareness. you know, by engaging in reflective practice, individuals can better understand their what their thoughts are, what their reactions are, what their actions are as well. Identifying development opportunities, so it identifies any sort of areas for improvement, fostering creativity and innovation, challenging any sort of assumptions, supporting emotional intelligence. So reflective practice involves understanding and managing one's emotions and emphasizing with others. So, you know, by reflecting on emotional responses and interactions, individuals can navigate complexities. And you know, things like promoting as well, you know, promoting your life. You know, if you have a good, healthy work-life balance, you know, reflection can help individuals to avoid identifying or dwelling into the past. You know, sometimes it's really, really important as an individual to keep a reflective journal. Why do you think it's important to keep a reflective journal? Why do you think it's so important? Murati, does anyone keep a reflective journal?
Yes, because it helps me to know the things I need to do, my progress.
Excellent. And what do you have in your reflective journal, Oluma?
I have things like okay, for instance, this particular course I'm doing is part of the things I aim to achieve for this year.
Yeah.
Before I move to other things that I want to do also.
Yeah, it helps you identify any sort of experiences and outcomes you want to get through, but reflects on any sort of development you need. Jessie, do you have a reflective journal, or do you have anything that is similar to a reflective journal that identifies any sort of your feelings, your observations, any sort of you know, what your ideas are, what you want to do?
We don't have a reflective journal at school, but what we do have is we rate ourselves on a scale of how we're working and our attitude to our learning.
Yeah. Does that help you?
Yeah, because it has levels, so you can see clearly what you need to do to get to the next level of doing better at school.
Yeah. Do you think, as an individual, do you think having that in place identifies any sort of elements that you need to improve on? Do you think it's
Yeah,
a good guide for you? Do you
definitely.
think that should be more, employers should do that more?
Yeah, I think it would be really helpful if employers did that, because otherwise, how does an employee know when they're not doing what they should be doing?
Yeah. So, you know, having this in place identifies any sort of your professional or personal developments, but it reflects on, like you said, Jessie, what you need to be doing, what you know, what activities you need to be putting in place, what courses you need to do. You need to reflect on that, and especially in the healthcare profession, you know, you need to make sure that what you are doing, you are up to date with things. You know, you are, you know, self-analyzing yourself and making sure that you are up to date with things. You are planning everything, and you are making sure that you are on top of things when it comes to reflecting on things. You know, you need to be looking at maintaining a journal that identifies what what you want to do, what your feelings are, what, you know, they have this thing called the cycle of reflective practice, which looks at your description, and which means that what happened, your feelings, so your reaction and your feelings, similar to Kolb's learning styles, your evaluation, so what went well and what could have been improved. Also look at analysis, make sense of the situation, conclusion, what you've learned, and then an action plan, which helps you what you could have done differently. You know, this could be both personal and professional. So we finished now. Okay, so we finished learning outcome 3, which we looked at the theories and the practice and the importance of CPD within professional development. And we looked at the cycle of reflective practice, the element of Kolb's theories, Honey and Mumford's theories. And these are the references we've used. You could use them when doing your assignment. There's some links to them there. Some additional reading on ebooks are on Moodle for you. Additional reading, there's a link there that you could go have a look at. It's called Reflective Practice in Health and Social Care and How to Reflect Effectively. Another link there to benefits of becoming a reflective practitioner. And you know, have a look at these in regards to it. Make sure that you try to the ones that didn't do it, I think Jessie's did it, try to go onto that link on the healthcare NHS website to see what jobs you can do as homework for tomorrow. Has anyone got any questions before we finish this session? Okay, so if you have any questions or any queries regarding any access to Moodle or anything like that, email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Submission of the assignment is to be done 2 weeks after the unit has been completed. Has anyone got any questions before we finish off? And I'll see you tomorrow for learning outcome 4.
Thank you.
Thank you, Olamaratu. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jessie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Sorry for going over as well. Thank you.
Bye.
No worries. Thank you.
Take care. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.